So you said you had some interesting things to tell us. What might that be today?
So I just caught a brief glimpse of it before I came on here to talk to you, Tom. The Xbox Scarlet VR. There is news in the air that Microsoft is actually going to do a VR console. I'm not sure any more than what the headline says, but the implications of Microsoft actually jumping into VR with their Xbox, I think that's just, I would say that, like, maybe some of the people that were in the Xbox last generation felt like they missed out, or maybe some of those people didn't really care. They had their flagship titles and they were fine with that. VR was first generation, and a lot of it was experimental. But next generation, I think, we're going to see some solid AAA games. It's a complicated paradigm. It's a complicated medium. It's that much harder to, like, actually put together a real, consistent, concrete virtual reality experience that lasts for any length of time. We've had, as an industry, 30 years to figure out how to put together a pancake game, a two-dimensional game. I think we got to give it a chance, and if Microsoft is throwing their hat in the ring, I think that means some good things are coming for us VR aficionados.
Imagine playing. I think one game that would work really well with virtual reality in terms of the Xbox would be Gears of War. Since it's already a cover-based game, imagine just kind of teleporting to the next cover or kind of popping over and shooting. I think that would work really good, especially with all the gore and all the stuff flying around everywhere, and that could be really cool. So some of the properties I think would be good.
Yeah, totally. I think Gears of War would be a perfect fit for VR. And one of the ways that VR shooters have found some traction is in the way that your body moves, that you aim the guns, and that would be perfect for Gears of War. I think you're right. Ducking behind that cover.
What if someone tried to dive roll and they fell into their TV?
Yeah, well, I think you're right about that. We'd have to cut down some of the extreme acrobatics. So, right now there is a Spider-Man VR, but last time I played Spider-Man VR, I got so wild that I started running and I almost fell out the window.
Yeah, I think there's also intense. The Iron Man coming out in February, I think. And people's impressions of that seem to be pretty good.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I will say Iron Man VR looks like the Tony Stark experience that I always wanted.
I have to say, since having my VR though, and past the first month or two, I haven't felt the pressing need to boot it up in a while. There's been some cool games that have come out, and I think it's kind of hard in a lot of ways to. It's almost like having an entirely separate console. Buying some games that come out in the fall, and then having other ones entirely separate, I think, is kind of a financial problem, I think, in terms of how people buy games for VR. I think if VR really wanted to make it accessible, we might be able to see more games launching that either have fully VR support or like some kind of VR component, like alongside, main game releases. So let's say if something like Cyberpunk come out on PS4, maybe there's some kind of way that you might not be able to move or play the game much, but you can put on the headset and kind of look around at the world, or maybe put on the headset and do the conversations or something. And I don't know, that could be kind of interesting.
I agree. And I think those little tie-ins could, add some value for people. But what we really need is like a full-fledged, like, this game is fucking cool with a controller in front of your giant, 85-inch Samsung OLED TV like the one that I have, or is it cool putting it on in VR and like being able to like immerse yourself further
I
in the
know
game?
that when they make it look just as good as I see it on my TV in 4K, just as good in front of my face, that's going to be super immersive. But
Yeah,
I think it's still a little ways off in terms of the lower budget, VR experiences. I think, maybe some of the $900 new Vive that came out, maybe it's gotten closer, but I still think, um, I wonder how the Xbox is going to compare to something like that, for example.
I think it's gonna compare favorably well.
I don't know.
Right? Why not? The new
think
Xbox is gonna have ray tracing, baby.
I think the hyping up of the
Ray
new
tracing.
Xbox and PS4. I think it's
Ray
I'm probably gonna buy the consoles, but not necessarily because of the power. I think that the Xbox One X just came out a couple of years ago, and it does have some interesting capabilities. It's just got 12 gigabytes of RAM for 4K textures and things like that. But in the marketing and the way they push it, they always kind of forget to mention some of the more important things, like how powerful is the CPU going to be? What are the capabilities of that going to look like? Some of the textures and shadows. Might be able to play 4K at 60 FPS, but and it might have ray tracing. But I don't know. I'm still skeptical that it's going to be comparable to, GTX 2080 Ti with ultra textures on 60 FPS. There's a difference between having 4K 60 FPS and having 4K 60 FPS at like ultra, right?
Yeah. I agree. And on paper, a 2080 Ti is going to be better than what they're going to put out. They're going to put out next generation probably for the GPU. If we look at the GPU that is in the Xbox One now or in the PS4, they're virtually identical. Then we can see that those are like kind of mid to low end parts even when they were released. And if we consider that now, maybe, okay, the Xbox is really going to have power more like a 2070, 2060 Ti. I don't know, but yet somehow there is always the common denominator, and that common denominator, or that equalizer, is the fact that if you have one system to develop for one unified platform, it's that much easier to develop and utilize and push to the max. And that's why, you get some games looking competitive with PC. Sometimes,
Well, I don't know if
better.
that's necessarily the limitations of a console. I think the best looking games of this console generation, well, you could say it's an advantage, but I think it more has to do with the companies that have bought these, smaller companies that are making these games. I think it's more about these specific companies that are exclusively based on the platform. So, take example, God of War. If it was released on PC, I could say that it would look better, but it's built to be an exclusive, and it's built by the specific company that's not making PC games, right? So, I don't know if it's the limitations of the console making it easier to develop, but more like these companies have purchased these game developers and aren't like letting them develop for anything else. Like, who knows what Uncharted or God of War could look like on PC. And we see that with Red Dead Redemption as well now. It's definitely going to be looking better on PC than it was on Xbox, even though it was probably kind of developed for Xbox
It was
and eventually released to the PC.
Yeah, and really, like the difference between probably Red Dead PC and Red Dead then Xbox has to do with, okay, what is the max resolution you can run it at? What is the texture resolution? And it ends up being sometimes, but most of the time also negligible. It's not that huge of a difference. And I don't know.
I beg to differ.
Well, do you think GTA 5 on the PC is like a generation ahead of what you have on Xbox One X?
Well, the problem with GTA 5 is that the game is actually developed. It was developed to be on the 360. That game is actually pretty old. So by the time it came on PC, it did look good. It was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. GTA 5 came out on Xbox.
I do remember it came out on there, but
they put it on Xbox, Xbox One, and of course PS4, and finally on the PC is the last kind of way to money off it.
All right. Well, do you think Red Dead on PC is going to look that much better, or is it just going to be like, oh, this is like
I think
the sharper version?
I think it's probably going to be able to support 60 FPS, and you can make the argument that that's not that big of a deal, but I think any kind of improvement like that, or in terms of the textures as well, is going to be pretty big deal.
But here's the deal: if you're drunk, you can't notice whether or not it's 60 FPS or how sharp it is.
Well, that's assuming that most of the people who are playing are drinking. You could drink in the game, so you don't need to in real life.
Well, there you go. I think the real thing is Red Dead advocates excessive alcoholism.
That's a good point.
And the game does that so that it will make people accept a lower resolution and lower texture fill rate and so on.
Well, I know that for a fact when I was playing Red Dead and I was sitting in my chair, 4 or 5 feet away from the TV, it looks pretty good and you can't really pixel peep too much, but if you go up pretty close to it, around 1 or 2 feet away, I definitely noticed that the textures and the sharpness wasn't like that amazing, especially, if you would compare that to a PC, you'd definitely notice a difference. And same with The Witcher, 4K, everything just looks so much sharper, and the background and stuff like that. The trees aren't like as fuzzy. I think it really kind of depends on your perspective. I've heard people say like, oh, I'm playing like a 2080 Ti on 1920 times 1080. It looks fine. But these people, once you see 4K, I think it kind of is hard to go back to, looking at kind of smaller images or.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. 4K is this big jump. And at least for me, it was like not. It didn't make the game seem that much different, but yeah, it was hard to go back to 1080p. But I don't know if I would say it really makes it ever like look like a new game to me. I
think it does. The ray trace. What games have you compared it on? I was playing Mordhau on 1920 times 1080, and I compared it to 4K, and it was like my entire screen had turned into a knife. That's how sharp it was.
I play it mainly on Destiny. This was back before it became free. So it still looked a little grainy to me at times, but I don't know, maybe that's Destiny.
Destiny does kind of have like a kind of jaggedy, kind of anti-aliased kind of feel to it. I think it has something actually to do with the textures, because I remember watching Angry Joe's review of Destiny, and he said sometimes the textures would look amazing and sometimes they just look like horrible. Yeah,
some of the textures are kind of mad, but for the most part, Destiny is fun looking.
I think Destiny does well in terms of its like lighting and like it's kind of more about its like world building and vistas and stuff like that. I think that's where it like excels. I don't know if it's like as graphically, it's not. I don't really hear anyone talking about benchmarks with Destiny. Usually they're using Tomb Raider or something like that.
That's true. But I mean, hey, Destiny is getting its day in the sun now.
Yeah, the only thing is some of the reviews about it have been pretty mediocre. A lot of people say, oh, it's just more of the same. It's nothing too special.
Yeah, well, it may not be the extra content that special, but the like content that they made free is like AAA shit going out there for free to the masses.
Yeah, but how much big of a deal is it really? Is it really that generous? I mean, these I went the other day at, the local grocery store, and there's like an entire bin full of Destiny 2s for $5. I couldn't. They're everywhere. They're just they should like hand them out to the customers who come to the store at this point. I think I think, in terms of just the copies and the hardware of the CDs they have out there, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I haven't seen anything like this since 1998 when AOL was passing out their CDs at every fucking Circle K.
Yeah, I saw a thing the other day talking about how Destiny is, one of the biggest games still in terms of, the pure amount of people playing it and the downloads and stuff. And I think if people do have a niche for it.
Yeah, it was #1 trending on like Reddit and Steam for like the past week.
I don't know. I wish I could get into it. I just feel like, I don't know. There's always just been something about it that couldn't grip me all the way. I think it's like one of those games where, all the things you like about it, but it doesn't grab you. I don't know.
I know the problem for you exactly.
What's that?
You won't accept your own destiny.
Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised to find that I liked Borderlands, but I think maybe if Destiny, if they had made it more of a linear game, more of a game like maybe if they had made Destiny more into an RPG, I think maybe I would find it more compelling. I don't know if I'm like really that into the multiplayer co-op FPS genre. I think that might be the problem because I never could really get into Warframe either.
Oh, well, it's kind of it's got like these RPG elements that are, I would say, a little bit more subtle than RPG, but they're like the same structure. And I see people like
a little bit of talent trees and the guns and things. And
people will like grind away at their character for like to become this other person, though.
Well, I meant more about like the role-playing nature of a game like The Witcher or like KOTOR, these dialogue-driven games. Not so much the mechanical RPG nature.
That's real. Yeah, I guess I agree with that. There's not too much actual.
Yeah, it's like even now in Borderlands, I'm kind of starting to feel like I'm just kind of shooting people over and over. The enemies are all starting to kind of look the same. My abilities aren't as fun as they used to be. So I always thought that was kind of a problem for me. Same thing kind of with Left 4 Dead as well. Once you kind of get through all the maps and stuff, it gets a little boring.
The way that you get beyond that boredom is by accepting that it's boring, but that it can also be relaxing. It's just like a dance of death where you hop around and kill masses of aliens and, are erotically inspired by the explosions of their death.
Yeah, I mean, certain people I think have more of the aptitude for, grinding and stuff like that. I guess grinding for me has just never been like my favorite thing to do day in and day out when I could be playing some other kind of game.
Well, I agree. Yeah, grinding sucks, but also mindlessly like playing without a point is also a thing too. That's what I do a lot.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like Path of Exile and those kind of games for the same reason, or Diablo.
Yeah, that's what I would compare Destiny the most to. It's more like Diablo or something like that. It doesn't have much story. It's about the action and the mindless grind. It's like the gameplay and the overall, controls are good enough and snappy and weighty enough that you feel like there's enough fun. There's enough of that dopamine rush just from a boring grind that you can master.
Yeah. Is there anything else going on? Oh, I finally finished The Spy.
Oh yeah, what did you think of The Spy?
It's kind of like you said, the last episode. Okay, well, anyone who hasn't watched it, I guess I won't include spoilers. Last episode, you kind of know what's going to happen a little bit, and it is sad kind of what happens, but I thought the ending was kind of weird. It almost made it seem like they wanted to do a season 2 or something. They kind of had that kind of weird training another spy kind of thing. But I guess it was just supposed to make the point of that there's always making more spies every day, no matter what happens to the old ones. Kind of.
Yeah, I agree. It was like a little bit it felt a little bit baity, but then like you're like, oh wait, no, maybe that's actually a point. I think they wanted to leave that ambiguity because that's what the spy's life is about, ambiguity, and how like he doesn't know if someone believes him or he's tricked them. It's
Yeah.
that was a way to pull you in, and I thought the movie overall, like, it was great, and yeah, it wrapped up a little bit quick. That was the only thing I'd say. But maybe whatever happened in the movie also happened quick in real life. I'm trying not to include spoilers. Do you know?
No, but probably. I think sounded like he was coming back, and then he went back for one more time, and I think he kind of suspected that they were getting closer to capturing him and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was sad.
Yeah, but anything else going on in the tech world?
Donald Trump.
It seems like every day it's like he's just done something worse and worse. But I think he managed to get out of this latest one. He's like, there's some kind of administrative stay or something on the him getting right.
I didn't hear that. What are you talking about? An administrative stay on getting impeached?
Yeah, apparently they were subpoena one of his management about the phone call stuff, but apparently like they're not like going through with it yet or something. I guess his lawyer is trying to delay and stuff.
I've heard that. So they put a subpoena in, and they requested documents, and his lawyers they were just like, okay, and then they like never turned it in. Just like when you were in high school and you told your teacher you were going to turn in your homework late, and then you just never did it. That's what they did.
Huh.
And then the other department's like, oh, you didn't turn these things in, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and then we're just waiting.
Yeah,
that's what's going on. They're just delaying, and there's like not much that can be done. It was expected. They're gonna drag their feet as much as they can to stretch this out to the election, and then the voters will decide.
What do you think? For anyone listening, we've been playing a game called Polytopia, and it's kind of like a game for multi-platform, kind of like Civilization, but you can distill down to its simplest elements. And we've been playing a game for the last week or so, and me and Ralph here are going against one other person who has pinned me down with his fleet, and Ralph is trying to come in and give me some aid, but it looks like our opponent has taken down my shoreline. You think we're going to be able to hold him off?
I don't know. I think right now he's got the resources upper hand. And honestly, the only way that we can win is if somehow
Does he have the top eastern part of the map as well as like he pretty much has half the map.
Yeah, but we also kind of have half the map too. You lost a city or two.
I think what we need to do is defend what we have if we can, and then try to capture some of the other parts so we can get more of the resources from the cities and build them up. Because I don't think just as long as you have most of the upgrades, I think it's still important to capture the cities and upgrade them because that's where you get all your stars from and it's currency.
Yeah, we might want to play more defensively. But then they always say a good defense is a good offense. I don't know.
Yeah, but last time I used all my ships to try to attack him and he killed all of them with archers.
Yeah, his archers are.
The problem is the
nasty.
ships I think are only really good when they're like got the distance of like a big ocean. But the problem is here it's like we're pretty close in terms of the shoreline, so the ship can only go out like 2 or 3 blocks, and then the archers can shoot them.
One thing that he told me that he does, and I haven't had a chance really to do it just because he's been shredding my Navy, is that he said he always does a flotilla. So he has the big battleship in the middle, and then the 2 little ones off to the sides of the wings. And that the little ones take the hits and open up the map,
And he's
while the big
he's
ones
really
could
thought
fire
this
back.
out.
He thinks everything out 100 times over.
How can we
He's a
ever
machine.
beat this?
I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do.
All right. Well, we'll have to let everyone know what happens next week if we are able to survive or we're burned down to the ground again.
I hope not.
All right. I'm going to end this off and see if it works and if it sounded okay. So,
Okay, I hope it did.
talk to you next week, Ralph.
Hasta luego, pendejo.